Hello, my loves. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about how empowering Santi or mindfulness has been for me in my life. And I want to share in particular a practice called RAIN, RAIN. Recognize, allow, investigate, and N is nourish and or non-identification. I like to do both because it's more bang for your buck, 2 for 1 special, you know. And so I first learned about RAIN when I read a book called 10% Happier, which I recommend. It's about meditation and the benefits of it. And it's written by someone who was initially very cynical. And he tries a lot of different techniques, so it's also a great way to educate yourself about different methods and kind of see what resonates most with you if you're sort of at the beginning of your meditation journey. I was reminded of this practice a few months ago by a friend, and then a few days ago I was listening to a beautiful podcast by Tara Brach on courageous presence in racism, when faced with racism. And actually, I think this was the universe kind of giving me a sign that I would need to call on this practice later in the day. She knew. She does that. So anyway, a situation arose that triggered me. It brought up some heated emotions, and I practiced RAIN. So I recognized what was happening, that this particular situation was making these, causing me to feel this way, or that I was responding to this situation with these emotions. And I allowed the emotions to be there, as uncomfortable as they might be. I didn't try to resist them or to use alcohol or drugs or food or exercise or shopping or any of these things to distract me from them. I just let them be there, yeah. And this was at night, so I actually went to bed before I went to the investigation phase. I tend to try to do that because I feel like, well, one thing that happens is once we allow these emotions, when we don't try to resist them, they dissipate much more quickly. The intensity decreases, right? And then it becomes easier to investigate from a place of equanimity and love. And so I went to bed and I was able to fall asleep no problem, which I would say back, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, would not have been the case. I would have just spiraled out and had a lot of negative or unkind thoughts, either about myself or the person or the situation, probably all of the above. So I went to bed, all good, I slept amazing. And then the next morning, actually very quickly, in my meditation, the answer came to me. I didn't really need to do much of an investigation. I did actually, before I went to bed, ask myself, like, okay, what's really behind this? Like, why is this affecting me so deeply? And then, yeah, I went to bed. The next morning, I did my pranayama, I meditated, I did my asana practice, and it came to me very quickly and very clearly that this was triggering my story, right? And we all have stories that stem from our wounds, usually from childhood or from experiences growing up. This is one of the benefits of inner child healing, is to identify our core wounds and the stories that we build around them, and then to start to work with that and to reparent. So stories vary, right? And we can have many stories, but we usually have one that's the strongest, and that's the one that triggers us the most, and that is usually at the root of most of our discomfort, especially in relationships. So stories can range from, I'm crazy, I'm too much, I don't belong, I'm different, and no one will accept me. I need to be good in order to be accepted, and good means being good at the expense of living my truth and honoring my truth. So compromising our peace for the sake of appearing as good to others. My story, which is a pretty common one, is that I'm not enough, that I'm not lovable. And this particular situation triggered that story for me. So yes, I've done a lot of work, and I'm very aware of this story, and it holds less and less weight. But these stories are sneaky and they creep up, and part of the work is just to work with, to acknowledge it, to sit with it, and to know that that's what's happening, and then to nourish it, to heal, to reparent, and give ourselves the love that we need and that we needed that created this initial wound. So I went into non-identification and nourishment. So non-identification is, I am not this story. I am not these feelings. I am not these thoughts that are in my head around this story or these feelings or this situation. And nourishment is, how do I return to love? How do I return to wholeness? How do I return to my true essence, which is my nature? This story is just something that was created through experience and through sometimes social conditioning, through experiences in relationships with our parents, you name it. So for me, nourishing calls on the practices that I've learned over the years. And I tend to call on a bunch of practices, not just one. And it depends on the situation which practices seem more appropriate. In this case, I went straight to the 4 agreements, the Toltec agreements. So don't make assumptions. What am I assuming about this situation? I have really very little information. I just have one fact. And I'm creating a lot of assumptions around that. And I don't know them to be true. Okay, so letting go of those assumptions, realizing that they're assumptions. 2, not taking anything personally. So this isn't about me. This has nothing to do with me. This is about this other person and their life and how they're choosing to lead it. And I'm not going to project any choices that they make onto me, onto my value, onto my worth, onto my enoughness, not taking anything personally. It's really simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. Yeah, as are all of these actually. But with practice, they become so. They become more habitual, innate, kind of intuitive. The third is be impeccable with your words. So not saying anything that you wouldn't say to this person, to their face. And I extend it to not saying anything that I feel is not aligned with how I want to be, how I want to live. That is using words that I don't want to put my energy towards. Our energy is really precious and words are very powerful. So choosing our words carefully and deciding if these are words that we really want to invest our time and our energy into, and if it's what we want to put out into the world. So I also try to extend that to thoughts, right? And so if a thought comes up that I feel is not aligned with my values or who I want to be, I check it, right? And then the 4th agreement is always do your best. And that changes from moment to moment, yeah? So in this case, when I first was made aware of this situation, I reached out to a friend. When I recognized what was happening and I was feeling the emotions, part of my allowing process was to reach out to a friend and just share. And there were unkind and judgmental thoughts in my mind. I'm not going to lie, or I'm not going to deny that. I did not speak those thoughts or those judgments, I did send the rolling eye emojis and the vomiting emoji, which I would argue is not high vibe. So part of my nourishing process was to recognize that in that moment, that was me doing the best that I could, right? I was still checking my thoughts, not putting unkind words out, and choosing where I wanted to divert my energy. But ideally, those emojis would not have been part of it. So next nourishing practice is forgiveness. I really like the Ho'oponopono meditation, the Hawaiian forgiveness meditation, and I use it a lot. And it doesn't just need to be used in your standard meditation format of sitting down with your eyes closed. And I kind of use it as a mantra, actually, whenever I think unkind thoughts about myself or find myself in judgment of others or myself. So the Ho'oponopono meditation is, I'm sorry, I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry, I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. Another practice that I used in this situation was a prayer that I learned from Gabby Bernstein. And it is thanking the universe for showing me that this needs to be healed, this story needs to be healed. And forgiving myself for having these thoughts and for, namely the story, but also the thoughts that come along with the story. And choosing to return to love. So thank you, universe, for showing me that this needs to be healed. I forgive myself for this story and for these thoughts, and I'm choosing to return to love. Another practice is affirmations. So I have a set of affirmations that I do every morning. I look in the mirror and I say them to myself, looking at myself in the eye. And these affirmations can come in handy too when I'm in a place of needing nourishment. So it sometimes happens that I do them outside of my morning practice. Meditation. I mean, that is the ultimate in returning to love, peace, equanimity, to true essence, to wholeness, connecting to the love within yourself, your wholeness, connecting to source, connecting to the love that is all around us. So that is another practice that is beneficial in nourishment. And then after I've done all of that, or some of those, depending on the situation, doing an activity that is nourishing. So for me, it would be surfing, maybe my asana practice if I haven't already done it, or if I feel like I want to do more. Cooking yourself a beautiful meal, infusing it with love and good vibes, something healthy, high vibrational. Giving myself a self-hug. This is one of my favorite things to do. Kissing my shoulder, telling myself that I love myself and why I love myself. Maybe a gratitude practice. What am I grateful for in this moment? I'm grateful for the clarity around this. I'm grateful for the healing. I'm grateful for the emotions that arose, because all emotions are information. And I would say that there's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion, just some are more uncomfortable than others, but they are all gifts. And so going along with the gratitude is, what is the gift in this situation, or the gifts? Sometimes there are more than one, oftentimes. So that's my share on rain and the power of mindfulness or Santi. And I find this to be so empowering because I choose how I'm going to use my energy, who I'm going to give my energy to. In this case, instead of giving my energy to this situation or to this person, I gave it to myself. Through the practice of rain, through the nourishing, through the non-identification, through the investigation, through all of it, allowing the emotions. So it's really empowering because it gives us a choice to respond, to decide how we're going to respond, rather than going on impulse or reactivity.